Yeah, we well, welcome everybody, and thank you, Pastor Bumble, for being here with us. Well, the put him on the spot here. Why are we here? Why are you here? Thank you for coming. I know most of you have seen one new face. Welcome all of you, and want to thank you for setting apart a Saturday in February to prepare for our summer camp, even though it's in May, but it's in the end of May. And for some of us, that'll be the beginning of summer. I understand this year, some high school will not be out on Memorial Weekend yet. Not always.
Usually not.
Yeah, huh? Usually not.
That's their final.
Yeah, because it's weird, but we used to have summer camp. So for those of you who don't know, we do a VAY Vietnamese Alliance this year. Pastor Bumble, by the way, working very closely with Vietnamese Alliance youth. In Southern California, we are Vietnamese Alliance youth. In Northern California, there were 7, 8 different regions in the country. We're all working under Musitak, caring and prepping and praying that the God bring gospel to the younger generation of the Vietnamese churches in the Christian Missionary Alliance. That's why we call it Vietnamese Alliance Group. And so we're closely together. We so in the Bay Area region, we've been running the youth camp for high school and middle schoolers every year. We used to be just high school for the high school students, but a number of years ago we started to reach out and include the middle school students in there as well. I don't know if you've been along enough. That we used to just keep it focused in the high school because we wanted the age range to be contained and similar stories, easier to reach out to them. But we realize, we begin to recognize that when you're, and you probably noticed in high school student in your church, that when they get to become going to juniors in high school, sometimes most like by senior in high school, their mind are already moving on to college, and it's kind of, if you don't reach them earlier, you lost them by that time already. And so with VAY, we began to reach out and include the middle school, the windows of opportunity for us to reach out to them, to experience grace and accept our life anchored in the gospel of Jesus. We start earlier for middle school and high school, and we also follow the 4-year cycle. We just like the journey of a person who comes to know Christ. First of all, you come in and you experience the gospel, and you begin to put your faith, your trust in Jesus, and then so you get to become a believer. So when you're a believer, what you need is to be built up in the Word, built up and rooted in the foundation of relationship with God. And as you build up, you begin to, the next step is you begin to receive so much that you want to serve other people. And when you get to the place where you're serving, then you get to be equipped that you want to share Jesus Christ with other people as well. So you see, we're just walking, we're talking about the 4 chairs. But so similar, we've been planning the 4-year cycle for our summer camp ministry, where we bring people in, we're trying to win them over to the gospel, to the love and the salvation of Jesus Christ. And they became believers, then you build them up, and you take root in the Word. And then after that, we training, we send them, we challenge them to serve, to start serving your local church, serving other. And then we equip them to multiply. And you notice that 3 years ago, our camp the theme was unplugged. Remember that? Unplugged from the world so that we could explore what the gospel was about. The second year's our theme was, now we get plugged in. Plug into the word that's growing into the word. And then last year, the theme was serving. And we're going to talk about serving. But Jesus Christ came not to be served, but to serve and be a ransom for many. Remember that? So last year, you learned about serving. We served some community. This year, we're going to challenge our young people to a step further, to really experience and know what the gospel is about, and how to live out an intentional life to share Christ, to share the gospel with your friends. Next year, we'll go back to the beginning, to the cycle when you're building the equipment. Does that make sense? And so Pastor Bumble has been, is a pastor of the Redemption Point in Southern California. It is one of the very unique church in Yan'an, in our district, where he started out and found this church with the mainly second generation, and it's all English speaking. That's the only really church I know, all English speaking, and reaching out to younger generations. So he's the right person to help us. Every year at Hope Down EMC, he helped with the VAY down there to plan an outreach event, training people on Monday, and send people out on the beach in different regions to reach out with the gospel. So he's the right person. That's why he's here. That's why you're here. So thank God he's so ready when he found out that we're going to do a camp. I'm reaching out and sharing gospel. He said, if you need me, I'm there. I said, of course. So that's why you're here. And then you see like the context of this year, the focus is on training. And I hope you get excited about this. And because sometimes when it comes to sharing the gospel, sharing with other people, we get, I don't know about you, I get nervous. Number one, I don't know how. I want to, I don't know how. And I don't, and when I go out and do that, I don't want to go out there alone. And so this is why we learn how to do this together and encourage one another. And I hope that you get excited, you feel equipped, and you know you go out there together, and God going to use our community reaching out and bless us. So that's all I have to say. Is that what you're expecting?
Yeah.
That's
good.
also give you a context.
Yeah.
I don't know if Pastor Andrew wants to say anything more to that. Okay? Thank you, Pastor Bumble. Again,
All right.
So
we have a small group, which is perfect. And I'd like to basically get started with getting to know you guys more, and we can start praying more about this, because this year camp, from what I understand, is going to be totally different. The context of multiplication, the camp is actually not really depend on the speaker, me. A lot of the thing in the camp is actually going to be depend on you. That's why we have, the meeting here, we run through some of the stuff together, because I think from what I understand, you have about 100 people, right, for the camp, high school and middle school, really tough. So I think in order to be able to get the stuff from the head to the heart to the hand, apply it out, working out, is actually, a lot of that is depend on you, the people in the front line. So I'd like to basically get to know you guys more, to know, and especially start praying for you as well, and we can pray for one another and see how we can tackle this. So let's start introducing ourselves. Usually, what are you going to, the context of what you think you'll be doing at the camp, your role at the camp, and what church you from, and what you doing at the camp. I think that would probably be the best way to get started. So I will start. Bumble, I'm from Redemption Point Church, which is what we just talked about. I will be more or less the coach and the trainer, perhaps, probably be the best way to describe. I think my speaking okay, not that good. I wouldn't prefer to be a speaker. All right, so that's me. How about you?
My name is Dan, Grace Alliance Church. This year, support staff and probably cabin leader.
Cabin leader?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go over here.
My name is Brendan from Grace Alliance Church. I'll be cabin leader for a high school or middle school.
Next.
I'm Tad. I'm from Barrier Alliance, and I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but hopefully I get to reinforce the kids' faith. So,
All right.
My name is Christian. I'm from SF Church, and I kind of don't know what to do either.
Okay.
My name is Jamie, Barrier Alliance Church. My role will likely be cabin leader / worship leader. Yeah.
All right.
My name is Rachel. I'm from Barrier Alliance, and probably I'll be a cabin leader.
Awesome. Okay. Let's go over here.
My name
name's Andrew from San Francisco Alliance Church. I'll just do whatever I need to be done. Like anything that needs to be done at the camp, I'll do it. Yeah.
My name's Hui, I'm from Berryessa, support staff, probably lead a table talk, and that is all.
Alright.
My name's Kristen, I'm from Grace Alliance, and I'll probably be a cabin leader.
You're from
Grace.
Grace? Okay. Cabin leader? Okay.
Hi, I'm Wei from Grace Church, so,
Nguyen?
we,
Nguyen? Wayne?
QUYE.
Q? Okay, Wayne.
We have to register.
Register? Registration?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Jen, I'm from San Francisco Church, and I'll probably be cabin leader. It's just assistance.
Okay.
I'm Alan. I'm from Sacramento Church, and I've never been to Big Camp before, so I'm not sure what to do.
Okay.
My name is Kevin. I'm from Sacramento as well, and I'm hopefully a cabin leader. That's not what I said anywhere.
So this time you hope to be.
Yeah, there was a lot of staff, so I just ended up doing whatever.
This time I think we need more stuff in place. Okay.
My name is Vicky. I'm also from Sacramento. I'm hopefully a leader, cabin leader.
Okay. All right.
I'm also doing position.
Yeah, what church you from?
I'm from
Sacramento?
Sacramento.
You can be anywhere. That's great.
My name is Yung, and I'm also from Sacramento, and I'm just a driver.
Okay. Trust me, driver is actually pretty essential.
My name is James. I grew up in Berryessa Alliance Church, and I'm trained to be a cabin leader.
Okay. Okay, the next one I want to ask to see how many people actually going through. So if you have ever been at the Hội Đồng or English Ministry Conference DMC down south, how many of you have been down there in the last 3 years? Okay. How many of you, among those of you who actually been down there for the last 3 years, how many of you actually came to the Monday morning training for evangelism? Just one. Okay. Is that box of similarity familiar?
Well, not last year,
Okay. All right. And then beside Christian, who else did we have going to be at camp that actually been through the training already?
My sister, Justine, and then 2 of our church members.
2 of the church members. Okay.
There's,
All right.
there's like 2 or 3 from our church that goes to
Okay.
that
So the training today, a lot of that is actually very similar to the Monday training, but actually in our context, and what we are trying to do for the camp. And I would like to basically introduce it this way, right? Let me go, if you want to take note, here is the main idea of how we're going to do the camp this year, okay? We have Friday night through Monday morning, right? So the whole camp is actually talking about the pathway to conversion, pathway for people to come to Christ. So we'll go through 6 different sessions, and they go through different stages. Some of that, I will give you an overview today so you have an idea of what stage people need to cross. We call them the 5 thresholds of conversion. Now, the key thing and the tricky thing is this. On Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon is the time that the camper will get to engage, going out and to the community and witness and do evangelism, right? And these things actually fairly big deal. The Saturday is actually a kind of an individual effort type of thing, where we will go into figure out, and you may want to basically take notes of all the logistics that need to be involved in entry. Because we need to basically get the camper to a location, and I'm from Southern California, I have no idea your contacts, so we need to discuss and figure out where's the best place. So we top them up, and for 2-3 hours, they would basically go in pair, go to approaching stranger. We do contact evangelism, right? They would have some sort of survey, and if they have opportunity, they would share that place. So that happened on Saturday. So whatever we do, we basically have to get them back to that point. So I assume that the cabin leader is also a small group leader as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now that's give you a context of what you are working toward, right? Okay. So that's Saturday, and that's the easy one. The Sunday is the one that actually harder. Sunday is a way that we do evangelism we call proxy station. And proxy station is these interactive art installation that you would engage with people. And the way we do it, in the past few weeks, we do this in Southern California, in EMC conference on a Tuesday. We get people to the beach, we set them, we get a few easy up, setting up with the display. I'll show you the display later, right? And what I'll draw is we would go out to people and we tell people, hey, around, at that time, we would give out free root beer. So, you know, if you can basically come over to our tent and get a free root beer, you know, and when people coming in for free root beer, we said that we have this art installation that we want to basically walk people through before they get their root beer, right? So that art installation is an interactive display that is designed so people can actually be able to share about their view about the Christian faith, and you know, if people basically going through the whole thing, they get to hear the gospel as well, right? So that is actually the second day, and this one much harder because it requires a lot of coordination and preparation, right? But that is the thing that we done. I think in Southern California last year. Did you go to the beach on Tuesday? So we have a bunch of people who going out to the beach, and one thing that we can also do is some people didn't go through a training on Monday, but we can actually train people to share the gospel, you know, with people there as well. And I think last year we have a couple of people accepted Christ. I remember Tybin from Texas was praying for some people and stuff. So that happened. When we did that on a high school campus in Putnam Valley High, the first time we did it in about like 2.5 hours, we basically shared the gospel to over 50 high schoolers, and some of them make commitment to recommit to Christ and stuff. So this is another way that we do it, fairly effective, especially on campus, college campuses and stuff. How many of you actually with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship in campus? Okay, so I think proxy station is something that I really do regularly. How the Campus Crusade for Christ? Anybody with Campus Crusade for Christ on campus? Okay. Campus Crusade, they also, you know, participate in these kind of events as well. Okay, so our training today. Now is the time that I'm going to hand out my handout. Have a couple of main heading. Actually, there are 2 pages on these things. So you may want to actually hand that hand. I would ask if you hand it out. So people have 2 pages, the first page and the second page. For note taking. That's the first handout.
Yeah.
Alright, so what we do is we basically focus on about probably 3 parts for today. I don't know how far we can get, but the first part, we would like to get down to the basic of what is the gospel, okay? Once we understand what is the gospel, the second part we will talk about how to share the gospel. And then the third part is actually more logistic stuff, if we get there, okay? Alright, so the first part about what is the gospel, I would like to start with an exercise, a challenge per se, with you guys. And I think we may want to divide up into 2 groups, so that we can make it more interesting. And the loser will have to, we have to get like winner and loser to make it more fun. So let me spell out. Here's what the losers are supposed to do. I think in Vietnam we do this game all the time. So if you lose, you have to basically carry the other person of the winning team on your back. And
There you go.
On the other side. Okay. That's the easy one. Okay. All right. So here's the challenge. We're going to divide up into 2 groups. So let's count up. Let's start with Dan. So 1, 2, 1, 2,
1, 2,
1,
2,
1,
2,
1.
2,
1,
1.
1, 2.
Perfect. Okay, so you get 1, 2, right? 1 and 2. After I divide up into your group, the object of the game. Okay, you take a look in the back there. There is a cube, 6-sided cube, hanging on the ceiling precariously, so it's easily placed. So the rule is you need to basically help your team member to go through one side and go through the other side. Okay? So let's say if you go on top and you go out from the bottom, right? Going here, that's counts as 1. Now the rule would be you cannot touch any part of that of the material, right? So if you touch, you have to redo it. That's like disqualified. Okay? So each team will have 1 move, and then if you touch or you succeed, and then the other team going to take the turn, right? Second rule is you can go through each of the pathway you go through can happen only 1. So if your team get a person from here out here, the next time they have to go like here to here or here to there, whatever it is, the entrance and exit can be done only 1 time. Okay? So when one team do it, the other team need to basically just watch like a hawk, make sure that they disqualify, they repeat, and get them out so that they don't have to carry it. Okay? So we have, we'll play, I think for the sake of time, we'll play how about whatever team score 3 points first will win. Okay? Yeah, question?
How many people can go like in the team? Can that person go again the second
No,
time?
one person. After one person go through, you have to have another person go through.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have to carry them through the box, or
You can do whatever you do.
whatever it takes, right?
You can do whatever it takes as long as you don't touch it.
Okay.
If you touch, you disqualify. Now you can carry, you can hang them, you can jump through it if you're good. You don't have to carry everyone. All right, so let's gather and then do the the huddle and then figure it out. So let me see. Team 1 over here and team 2 over here. Thing that's similar that you can see between this exercise and the process of helping people to come to accept Christ. Okay, assume that cube is the gospel, right? And we're trying to basically get people to come through and understand the gospel. How's that similar? Yeah.
It's a team effort to evangelize.
Okay, so team effort to evangelize. Anything else? Any other similarity?
Accepting to be helped.
Accepting to be helped, or to be helped. Okay. Anything else?
Not
Any other
easy.
similarity? Huh?
Difficult, yeah.
It's challenging. Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
I think you 2-1 because we had more girls in the team than you
Okay. So maybe gender actually have to play a role. Anything else?
There's more than one way to get through it.
Okay, there's more than one way to get through it. You can also see that the children actually have that advantage, right? Yeah.
Yeah, think of a way to like approach the gospel because we in that game we have to think of a certain strategy to go through.
Okay.
A strategy.
Sometimes you also need to strategize. Yes.
That strategy had to adapt to both the person and the people supporting.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Strategy you have to adapt to people and the person. Anything else?
I think knowing the gospel truly. Knowing the gospel truly.
Knowing the gospel truly.
Yeah.
So you need to know the shape, what's small, which one angle is small, and the bigger one. And
Yeah.
stuff. Okay. Anything else?
You have to be creative,
Yeah, be creative.
innovate. The person has to be willing to go through it too.
Yeah.
Right?
They have to be willing. Anything about other stuff? You guys originally asked about props.
Props. Yeah.
Does the prop help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chairs.
Chair help. Okay. Or tools that you have. Any other kind of thing that challenging or similarity between that and the process of leading people through the gospel? Sometimes things move, right? Kind of tricky when it's like rotating or something. Do this outdoor and you have a whole different aspect to really do with it. Now, note heads up for Andrew and team and logistics that you have. This is actually very, very helpful for the camper to learn about sharing the gospel. So your challenge should be accepted during the time that we have for community in game. We also need to prepare. If you have 100 camper, each group about 8 people, can you basically make a bunch of these cubes, set them up, and set it as a way that they can have something that exercise that they go through for fun, but also debriefing. You can help them to basically see the similarity between the effort of basically evangelize and get people through and understand the gospel, right? Now, the other challenge that we have, on your table there are also some paper and pen, okay? And the blank paper is what you want. For the next 5 minutes, I would like for you to write up, remember real quick about, let's say if people come to you and ask, what's the gospel? I'm interested to become a Christian. What is the gospel? What would be the simplest or the gospel outline that you have that you need to share to people? What is the key component that you want to communicate to people? What's the gospel about? Okay, so go through that, use the blank sheet of paper, write them out, and then we'll basically come together. Do some training for you guys to be able to share your own testimony before, right? Yes? Yes? Okay. So let's take some time right now. Turn to the person next to you, if they already so familiar with you, and then switch seat, find some new stranger people. What we want to do is take the next 5-10 minutes and share your own testimony about how you come to know the gospel, okay, with that person. Whatever một sư hùng, talk to them the last time. Let's do that real quick, okay, in 5-10 minutes, because now notice that for those of you who are cabin leaders, you need to know this, because I think one of the first things that we want to do is we want to teach the student, the high schooler and the middle schooler to basically share their own testimony. Because unless you actually have that understanding, it's really, really hard for you to share to other people. And also, we do not assume that every high schooler or middle schooler in the camp is actually a Christian, right? They may grow up in church and they may not have that. So one thing that we want to do is we want to demonstrate that. So you can share of other people, you are cabin leaders, group leaders, you can actually share, articulate how you come to Christ and how the gospel came to you. So let's do that in the 5-10 minutes real quick. For those of you who actually hear the first time, usually it consists of 3 things. My life before I meet Jesus or know the gospel, right? What is the incident or the process of how I come to know the gospel, and then my life after, knowing Christ or become a Christian. That's pretty much about, like 3 acts. Okay, so split up with some people who haven't heard your testimony before, and just take some time. 5 minutes for you, 5 minutes for the other person. Okay, go. And depend later on we will learn more about what sort of conversation you start with people. At this point, the conversation that you just have with your partner is sharing the gospel, right? So one thing that we can use the deck of cards this way, they can have different type of question. For example, I'm going through the instruction. They said, well, like for example, questions such as pick 3 pictures that best describe your life right now, right? So you can have conversation with a couple of people, or pick some picture to describe what you want to wish in the future, right? And you can basically pick that, and you can build conversation that way, since you want to play. So why don't you and I can play with us, right? So why don't you pick 2 cards? One describe your past, and one describe what you hope to see in the future. Okay, and I'll do the same thing. Let me see my card in the past, and then one to describe future. Okay, so now basically we can talk about. So let's share about. I'd like to share about my card for the past.
Sure.
Okay, so this is the one that I shared the past. Right? A picture that describes my past. And the reason I picked this card, because maybe you don't know, but when I grow up a teenager, I'm a teenage delinquent. I break into people's house, I steal stuff, and sell them on the black market and stuff, stuff like that, and become really, really a big headache for my family. My dad beat me up and I won't listen. My mom tried my feet, I just still won't listen. And it's really a bad past that where I coming from. So, what about you?
What about me? Okay.
Yeah.
So, here you guys go. This is the card I chose. I think, growing up, it was pretty hard for me. I went through through pornography. I went through drinking. I went through smoking. I went through being homeless on the streets, and I used to wanted to have sex with the girls, and I was really a messed up person back then.
Okay. So we also talk about one part that basically sharing about our hope, our future. So what's your part that you pick?
I choose this one.
Okay.
Oh, the light. You have seen my dream?
Okay.
So this represents me when I accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ, and when I asked Jesus Christ to receive me into my life, I asked Him to come into my life and to take away my sins. And this represents the tree is Jesus Christ, and the light is His light.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so the one that I picked is actually this letter over here. So I think that's probably best represent my hope for the future. Now I'm leading the church and trying to basically help lead people to heaven and have hope and joy in my life. So that's how Jesus basically changed my life. So as you can see, look like you've done this before. Yeah. Great. So this is just one of the way that you can actually do this. This card actually available in the I think Crew website. You can order them probably about $10, something like that. It will be really, really helpful, especially when you go to camp. Since they're going to play cards anyway, right? Might as well get this and turn this out. So basically, you get to know people better, and when you get a chance to basically can get deeper into their life, right? So now let's get back one of the questions I want to ask you, right? So we do an outline of the gospel, and you share to people about your experience, how you come to the gospel. How much of that content of the outline actually in your sharing? Yeah. Yeah. So how much of the gospel outline actually in the way that you share your testimony with people? Not much, right?
Actually, it was like these two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. But I'm talking about like the content that we worked on earlier about the different components.
I wasn't there for that one.
Yeah. So let's go back to your table. Get out the one thing that I hope that you will lead today is actually we know what is the gospel, so that we can share the gospel, right? And we can live the gospel. We can believe in the gospel. So even with the simplest way that we can share our own testimony, is actually more of sharing the effect of the gospel, right, on our life, but not really the gospel itself. So the content that you have on your sheet of paper is actually the gospel. So let's listen to a few of them and see what do you write down, right? So let's see. I like to volunteer a woman. So you four in the back. So really 1, 2, 3, point at the person that you want to share. There you go. Okay, so read up your outline. Read up your outline real quick about what you have.
So like we are all sinful people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we can't have the salvation, and we can't have eternal life unless we receive Jesus and receive His forgiveness. And through Jesus, through His sacrifice and His love, we can come to God and reconcile with God and have salvation.
Okay. All right. This table ready to point. 1, 2, 3, go.
If you guys should have pointed at me, I would have done it.
All right. This guy get more. Go ahead, read up your outline.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
So I basically put it is the good news that Jesus came on earth to pay for the penalty of our sins, because before Jesus came, we were dead in God's eyes because of sin. But Jesus did not come down on earth to penalize us, rather He came to pay for that penalty of sin by dying on the cross and resurrecting, so that for those who believe in Him, like in John 3:16, shall not perish but have eternal life.
All right. 1, 2, 3, go. Alright, what do you have?
I have the gospel like about Jesus sacrificing the cross is an outline, and I really believe in God. So that's the outline for the gospel I have.
Okay. All right. Now let's listen to it to a more critical manner, right? So, what do you think is missing in our outline?
Say that again.
What is missing in your gospel outline so far? Will this, the way that you say, okay, so if I actually have my friend and I'm trying to explain this gospel outline to them, is it complete? Is it missing something? Are they going to ask some question? Something that they completely, won't get? Yeah.
Does it matter to you or something?
Yeah. So here's why we have this exercise, right? Because I think it's important for us to understand the whole picture, right? So for example, I would say when you start with this, and you talk about we are sinful people. Jesus died for our sin. I'm going to mess you up real fast without the recording. So we talk about some of the major components, right? So sin is actually one of them, right? Now on your sheet, on your blank sheet of paper, the outline that we have, there are like 6 underlined that represent what we call 6 windows to the gospel, right? Because one of them is sin, right? We're sinful people. But then, how is sin matter? People sin, and nowadays people sin. Sin is actually pretty normal. There's no right or wrong. So, a couple of things I want to basically write down some of the keywords, right? So, one of them, the first one is actually creation of God. Because if people don't even recognize that there is God, there's no creator, who cares? Right? There's nothing happen, so a lot of time when you come in and you talk to Jesus, and a lot of time you have to basically backtrack and say, well, who is Jesus? There is a God, and that God creator, and all this stuff, right? So for people who don't really have any kind of background in the gospel, you talk about Jesus died for your sins, like, so what? They would not be able to understand that. So the story of the gospel is God created the world, right? We sin, we separate ourselves from God. With sin came what? What's the result of sin? Judgment, right? Death. Or judgment. And then this part is where all of us deserve to go to hell, right? We pay for our sin forever and ever. But what happened is Christ came into our world. He loved us, right? And he died for our sin, right? So this one is have Christ, or I can talk about the cross, or love. So he died, he paid for the penalty for us, right? And what happened is Jesus not only died and paid the penalty for us, but he also lived, right? So here we have the resurrection. I may misspell some word. So, or life, or even eternal life. And so the result of Christ died, not only he died for our sin, but also resurrected, right? He gave us a new life now and forever, right? Transformation happened over here. And then the last part is actually our response, right? And our response is, what are we supposed to basically do with the message? And this talk about faith. Right? This is belief. This is the invitation. Okay? Now, the reason that these 6 windows to the gospel is important, because how many of you actually been through evangelistic training where you have an outline, like an EE, and you've gone through everything and trying to get everything out? You've been through that before? It's like I remember one of the one that here's the story of me went to follow. I learned this thing from Mukshi Thomas Tebin. That's one of the best one, right? And it go with hand motion, so that's why I remember. It starts something like this. This, in heaven, this is like hitchhike, right? Like hitchhike on the freeway, you pick up people. So he said that, heaven is a free gift, right? Heaven is a free gift. You get a way to heaven, and that's totally free, right? So that's and then the second thing, he said this. This is when you point to people, right? When you point to people, 3 finger basically point back to you, right? So his second thing is, heaven is a free gift. You are on your way to heaven. The problem is sin, right? Sin actually separates you from God. That's why God cannot tolerate sin. So that way we cannot be in heaven, right? So sin. And then on the middle finger, of course you're not going to raise your middle finger, right? So that's why he do this way, right? The middle finger is the tallest one, right? So stand for God, right? But God actually loves us, doesn't want us to die in our sin, right? So God loves us. So the little finger is stand for love. So that's why he basically sent Jesus to come to die, to take the punishment on our behalf and resurrect it and give us a new life and allow us to be reconciled with God and go to heaven. So that the little finger, the finger, the ring finger, right, that stands for love. And then the little finger is the smallest one. It stands for faith, right? So the Bible said that even if you have the smallest faith as the mustard seed, when you believe, and Jesus will basically forgive your sin, God will forgive your sin and reconcile you with God and bring you into the family of God, and that's how you be able to get your way to heaven, right? So that's the story, that's the outline type of thing, right? The challenge with that, and the reason we do the 6 windows here, because I also begin to recognize that sometimes you don't have enough time to basically go through the gospel from beginning to the end. Sometimes you sit on people on an airplane, they get trapped with you for an hour, they have no way to escape, you can do that, right? But with your friend completely different. Sometimes they're not really interested in certain part. Sometimes they're only interested in one part. Like for example, that's why we do that cube game, going through the cube, how you come to the gospel. Sometimes you come through one way and not the other. Now, for example, I have a friend who formerly an atheist. And as an atheist, if you actually begin to start with God and creation, she actually rejects you outright because, hey, scientific evolution, forget it. And you argue until you blue to the face with her. She said that the reason that basically she come to the gospel, actually, believe it or not, through the judgment windows. As an atheist, the main thing that she wrestled with is the fairness of justice and injustice. If there's no afterlife, there's no God, then the serial killer or and a good person is like the same. What's matter it is, so if I live a good life, what for? There's no point on this. So she wrestled with that a lot, right? And I think through this window is when she began to contact with Christians, she began to go through the gospel in this window, and then from that, basically she began to go to the other one, right? Now, in my own life, and in your own life, you can actually experience this as well. Like for the longest time, my life growing up from a teenage delinquent and all this, really terrible things, the thing that drives me to the gospel is this one. I want to transform life. I want to basically be a better person. And it seems like I get stuck with, addiction, with this and that. So, for me, it's like God is a way that basically to help me to deal with this stuff. So I accept the gospel to get this benefit right away, right? So this is where I come in. But then I think throughout time, I begin to realize that, there are other aspects of the gospel I begin to learn more. You know, you begin to run more to the love of God, right? So the unconditional love of God in a certain way. You begin to learn more about how our respond to God. It's not so much of our effort, but what God is doing. And lately, one of the things that I'm dealing with is the judgment, the holiness of God. You know, until today, the holiness of God is still something that I wrestle with, right? That's an aspect of the gospel that I haven't basically go deep into. Okay, so on your blank sheet, I mean, of the paper that get a 6 line on there, right on top of those underlined, you know, these themes, these windows of the gospel, so that you would be able to find out more and see where your friend or the non-Christian friend that you have, that we can be able to engage with them and talk to them about these topics, for example, right? These are the approach that we have. And sometimes, I think we don't have the whole time for do the gospel outline. Some of our friends, they get stuck with a certain place, or they're interested in a certain place, just begin to work on that, right? And then you begin to see how the gospel relevant, Christianity relevant to them, and work on that over time. Okay, now, the next challenge that I have for you is this. Now we have the 6th theme, right? My challenge for you in your windows is come up with scripture verses that actually help you to communicate what the Bible talk about these themes. Okay, can you work on it? There are post-it note on your table. So working together with your table and trying to see if you be able to come up with some Bible verses for any of these themes. Okay, what God talk about, you know, the cross, about life, right? About faith, you know, what God's word talk about. That's one.
Get a more example about each window. What do you want from me? Like one of the windows say that one person is kind of struggling with how fair life is. Can you also give examples? Start with the gospel or a person or dealing with
Many times, even non-Christian would come to me and they ask for marriage counseling, for example. And I would use that as an opportunity to share the gospel, and basically I work out on some of these windows, right? So for example, for them, I say, okay, so the reason you come over here, because you want to have your have a good understanding and you be prepare for your marriage so it won't broken and won't have divorce and stuff, right? So I would walk them back to, let's say, Genesis chapter 2, how God created us, right? God created us in the very beginning with man and woman. In Ephesians chapter 2, what that picture of marriage is supposed to be according to God's design, right? I can also show them in Genesis chapter 3 about how that marriage actually broken when the man blaming the woman and all this stuff, right? And I also begin to challenge them to point out the result of that, right, would be separation, lost misunderstanding. Today we have divorce, kids a mess, things like that. But then I also begin to talk to them about how we can love. The only reason that we can love, especially with fallen people, we are more selfish. So we can only love the right way, love unconditionally, if we actually be able to realize that how God actually loves us more, right? And then I can basically, with a marital couple, I can basically work on this end in terms of how the Holy Spirit empower us and help us and transform us in a way that we'll be able to love unconditionally, the same way that God did. And then in terms of our response, you know, we get basically, I will teach them to be able to respond, be able to practice. You know, there are skills, there are things, prayer, exercises that we can do to walk according to what God wants them to do. And many times in coaching relationship, I have even Christian family coming in and they will think of each other and say, well, so how are we supposed to basically, you know, love, how we're supposed to respond to our spouses, and this is basically the way that they work out that faith. So with each of these things, there are different ways that you can basically drive and bring people to the gospel, and you kind of connect them to the gospel in that way. Yeah. So that's just something that I did most of the time with unmarried couples and stuff. Yeah. Okay, so you guys work on some Bible verses.